Have you ever, when you're playing a game, wanted to just change the rules a little bit? You know, like just tweak something, make it a little bit more interesting.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, who hasn't, right? That's basically what we're talking about today, homebrew.
Yeah, homebrew and tabletop RPGs, especially D&D.
It's all about going beyond those official rule books and adding your own personal touch to the game. It can be as small as a single rule or as big as a whole new world.
Right. And that's what's so cool about it, that creative freedom. And we actually have a great article about this from LitRPG Reads by Paul Bellow. They get into some really cool examples of homebrew, like people creating entire worlds from scratch with their friends.
Yeah, you can make custom spells, races, classes, stuff that's totally unique to your game.
Exactly. I mean, imagine crafting a whole new magic system or something. How cool would that be?
It's really awesome. But there is a little bit of a caution here too, you know? Homebrew, if it's not done well, can actually cause problems. It's not just about throwing in random crazy ideas.
Right, it has to actually work within the context of the game.
Exactly. The best homebrew solves problems and enhances the game, not just makes things more complicated.
I see. So it's not just about adding more stuff, it's about making the game better.
Exactly. The article mentions some dungeon masters using homebrew to address frustrations with the official rules. They create a solution that works better for their specific group.
Okay, that makes sense. Can you give us an example of what that might look like?
Sure. One example from the article talks about how someone overhauled the character development system. They felt that the official system was a little bit too rigid.
Too rigid?
Yeah, not dynamic enough. So they created a homebrew system where players could change their skills and even aspects of their personality as they played the game.
Oh, wow. So it's more like a natural progression for the character, like they're actually evolving based on their experiences.
Exactly. It's more realistic, more immersive. And the article also mentions how homebrew can be used for those downtime activities, those periods between adventures that are often kind of glossed over.
Yeah, what do you even do with your character during downtime, right?
Right. Well, one DM in the article created a whole system for managing downtime with mini games and mechanics for all sorts of things, like crafting, building relationships, even pursuing political ambitions.
Oh, wow. So it's like turning those downtime periods into their own little adventures.
Exactly. It makes the game world feel so much more alive and vibrant.
That's amazing. I mean, imagine all the possibilities. My character could finally pursue that dream of opening a tavern.
Or maybe start a thieves guild.
Exactly. The possibilities are endless.
They really are. Homebrew can unlock so much potential. Even addressing specific themes in your campaign. Let's say magic is super rare and dangerous in your world. You could create homebrew rules that make spellcasting riskier. Maybe tie it to some sort of consequence.
I like that. It adds a layer of realism and tension.
Exactly. Yeah. But with all this amazing potential, there's also the risk of things getting too complicated.
Right. Like you mentioned before, it's not just about adding more stuff, it's about making the game better. So how do you find that balance?
Well, the article warns about complexity creep, which is basically what happens when you add so much homebrew that the game slows down because of all the extra rules and calculations.
Yeah, I can see how that would be a problem.
Definitely. No one wants to be in the middle of a dungeon crawl and have to stop to figure out some complicated homebrew rule.
No, not at all. So how do you avoid that? What are some of the warning signs that your homebrew might be going overboard?
Well, one red flag is if your rules require a lot of math or constantly having to cross-reference different charts and tables.
Oh yeah, I can see that being a drag. Nobody wants to feel like they're doing their taxes in the middle of an adventure.
Exactly. Another pitfall is when the homebrew is poorly explained or the DM keeps changing how it works.
Yeah, consistency is key, right? If the rules are vague or constantly changing, it's going to lead to confusion and frustration.
Absolutely. And then, of course, there's the risk of creating something that's just broken.
Broken? Like how?
A homebrew spell that's so powerful it makes every other spell useless, or a character ability that totally unbalances the game.
Yeah, those game-breaking abilities, as the article calls them, can really ruin the fun for everyone.
Exactly. It's a tough balance to strike, for sure.
So with all these potential pitfalls, how do you make sure your homebrew is fun and balanced? Where do you even begin?
Well, I think the key is playtesting. You got to try out your homebrew before unleashing it on your main campaign.
So run a test session with a small group or something.
Exactly. It's a great way to see how the rules actually work in practice and to get feedback from your players.
Okay, that makes sense. It's like a test kitchen for homebrew rules. You can tweak the recipe before serving it to the main party.
That's a great way to put it. Playtesting is essential for making sure your homebrew is actually fun to play.
So we've talked about play testing, but what about making sure your homebrew fits in with the existing game mechanics? Avoiding that complexity creep we talked about. How do you actually do that in practice?
Well, the key is to align your homebrew with the official mechanics. You don't want to create something that feels completely foreign to the game world.
Right. It should feel like a natural extension of the existing rules.
Yes, exactly. Like, let's say you're designing a new spell. Instead of creating a whole new system for magic, try basing it on existing spells.
So, look at the structure and power level of those spells and use that as a template.
Exactly. And then you can adjust the specifics to fit your needs.
So you're essentially remixing a classic song, adding your own unique flavor while still maintaining the core melody.
That's a perfect way to put it. And this principle applies to all kinds of homebrew races, monsters, classes, even entire game systems. By working within the established mechanics, you ensure that your creations feel authentic and balanced.
It's about finding that sweet spot between personal expression and maintaining the integrity of the game world. But what about player feedback?
Oh, player feedback is crucial. Even the most carefully designed homebrew might need some tweaks once you actually start playing.
Right, so it's not just a one-time creation. It's an ongoing process.
Absolutely. You need to be open to adapting your homebrew based on how it plays out at the table. Make sure your players feel comfortable sharing their thoughts and suggestions.
So it's a collaborative effort. You're working together with your players to create something truly unique and enjoyable.
Exactly. It's all about communication and collaboration. It really is. And when you do make changes, try to do it gradually. You don't want to completely overhaul the entire system overnight.
Right. Yeah, small tweaks are better.
Exactly. It keeps things flowing smoothly. Another thing, try to give those changes an in-world explanation.
Oh, I like that. Keeps the players immersed.
Yeah. Instead of just saying, okay, we're changing this rule because it wasn't working, you can tie it into the story. Like, maybe a powerful deity has intervened or a new artifact has been discovered, something like that.
That's so much cooler. It's like you're weaving the homebrew into the very fabric of the world.
Exactly. It becomes part of the narrative. And actually, the article mentions a really cool example of this. It's a system for tracking reputation within a specific city.
Oh, interesting. How does that work?
So basically, players' actions, whether good or bad, affect how different factions in the city perceive them.
Oh, I see. So it's like a dynamic reputation system.
Yeah, exactly. It opens up new opportunities and challenges based on your standing with different groups.
That's awesome. It's like those reputation systems you see in video games, where your choices have real consequences.
Exactly. It adds a whole new layer of depth to the game. And that's just one example. Homebrew can be used to enhance all sorts of things: combat, exploration, social interaction. It all depends on what you and your players want to achieve.
The possibilities are truly endless. But, as we've been talking, I've been thinking, what about players who are hesitant to try homebrew?
Oh yeah, that's a valid concern.
Yeah.
Some people prefer to stick to the official rules, and that's totally fine.
Right. But how do you address those concerns?
Well, I think the most important thing is communication. Talk to your players about their expectations and concerns. If they're hesitant about homebrew, start small. Introduce a few minor tweaks here and there, see how they react.
So ease them into it.
Exactly, like maybe create a custom background for their character or a unique item they find during an adventure.
Yeah, that's a good way to show them the potential of homebrew without overwhelming them.
And remember, homebrew should never be forced on anyone. It's a tool to enhance the game, not to control it.
Right, it's about creating a fun and inclusive environment for everyone.
Exactly. If a player is truly uncomfortable with homebrew, then you can always work together to find alternative solutions. Maybe there are official rules that can be tweaked, or house rules that can be established to accommodate their play style.
Right, it's about finding what works best for the group.
And even if your players are totally on board with homebrew, it's still important to set clear boundaries and expectations.
Boundary.
Yeah, talk about what kind of homebrew you're comfortable with as a DM and what's off limit.
Oh, I see. So everyone's on the same page from the start.
Exactly. And it's also a good idea to discuss how you'll handle things like playtesting and feedback. Will you be the sole creator of the homebrew, or will players be able to contribute their own ideas?
Yeah, those are important conversations to have.
Definitely. It helps to prevent misunderstandings and fosters a more collaborative environment.
So it's about creating a sense of shared ownership over the game, making sure everyone feels like they're part of the creative process.
Exactly. And that's what makes homebrew so special. It's a way for players and dungeon masters to work together to create truly unique and memorable gaming experiences.
This whole conversation has been so insightful. I've learned so much about homebrew, not just the mechanics, but the philosophy behind it.
Me too. It's not just about changing rules, it's about enhancing the game and creating a more immersive and engaging experience for everyone.
It's about taking something you love and making it even better.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
But speaking of making things better, we talked earlier about game-breaking abilities. And obviously that's something we want to avoid. But it's also a tricky concept to define. What exactly makes an ability game-breaking?
That's a great question. And honestly, the line between powerful and game-breaking can be pretty blurry. It often depends on the context of your campaign.
So an ability that might be fine in one setting could be totally broken in another.
Exactly. It's not just about the raw power of the ability, but also how it interacts with the overall game world and the other characters' abilities. Like, let's say you create a homebrew spell that lets a player control other people's minds.
Okay, that sounds pretty powerful.
Right. But if the campaign is set in a world where mind control is common and other characters have ways to defend against it, then it might not be as game-breaking as it seems.
I see. So it's all about context.
Exactly. You need to consider the power level of the campaign, the challenges the players are facing, and the abilities of the other characters.
So how do you avoid accidentally creating something that breaks the game? Are there any red flags to watch out for?
One big red flag is an ability that completely bypasses core mechanics of the game. Like, let's say you make a homebrew class that doesn't need to roll dice to attack.
Wow, yeah, that would definitely throw things off balance.
Right. It removes a fundamental element of the game. Another red flag is an ability that trivializes a specific type of challenge, like an item that makes you immune to all magic.
Yeah, if one character can just ignore entire categories of obstacles, it's not really fair to the other players.
Exactly. It's about maintaining a sense of challenge for everyone.
So you need to be really careful about the abilities you create.
You do. And it's not always easy to spot potential problems during the design phase. Sometimes you need to play test to see how things actually work in practice.
Right, it's all about testing and refining.
Exactly. And even with thorough playtesting, you might still miss something. Be open to feedback from your players and be willing to adjust your homebrew if it's not working as intended.
So homebrew is really an ongoing process. It's about constantly improving and evolving.
Exactly. It's a journey of discovery and collaboration.
I'm really starting to see the appeal of homebrew. It's so much more than just changing rules. It's about creativity and passion and working together to create something truly special.
I couldn't agree more. Homebrew is a testament to the incredible imagination and dedication of the D&D community.
It's really cool how homebrew lets us tailor the game to our own interests, make it truly our own.
Absolutely. It's all about personalization and making the game the best it can be for you and your group.
And I think what really stood out to me from this article by Paul Bello on LitRPG Reads is the emphasis on doing homebrew responsibly. It's not just about throwing in random stuff. It's about making sure it actually enhances the game for everyone.
Yeah, for sure. It's got to be thoughtful and intentional. You want to make sure those homebrew elements feel like they belong in the world, like they're a natural part of the story.
Exactly. So to all our listeners out there, we want to hear from you. Have you ever used homebrew in your games?
Yeah. What kind of crazy stuff have you come up with?
Tell us about your successes, your challenges, all of it. Share your experiences in the comments below.
We're always excited to hear from the D&D community and learn from each other.
Right, because at the end of the day, it's that shared passion and creativity that makes this game so amazing.
So true.
Well, that about wraps it up for this deep dive into homebrew.
It's been a blast.
We hope you all enjoyed it and learned a thing or two. And remember, with great power comes great responsibility. So use your newfound knowledge wisely, and may your campaigns be ever epic.